Chris. How are you?
Hey Terry, how's it going?
It is going really well. It's going well. First and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for accepting the invitation to come here at our educational community civic series with Western Power. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Western Power and why we do these educational community civic series, just to make sure that our community is aware of the who, the what, the where, and the why. And make sure that everyone has the knowledge of when they go to the ballot box of who these people are, what they stand for, and I hope that we can answer some of the questions that people may have. So that's a little bit about Western Power. If you don't have any questions, we can get started.
No, oh, you're waiting for me. No, Terry, just number one, thanks for having me on, and I'm happy to be here. I'm glad you're doing it and giving people a chance to say who they are, introduce themselves, all over Pittsburgh and the region. So thanks for giving me a chance to do it.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, well, let's get started. And the very first question is, for someone who may not know you, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Chris Deluzio. I'm a Democrat running for Congress in the 17th district here. I'm from Thornburg, so grew up, west of Pittsburgh. My roots are in Sheridan and the South Side, and Jeanette in Westmoreland County. I know I Sheridan. My mother grew up. My grandmother lived into her 90s on Middletown Road. So there you go.
What? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So local. I went to we'll do real local. Ingram Elementary for elementary school, St. Phillips. I went to Canevin for high school.
So did my husband. My husband went there too. Quintel.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he
there you
went
go.
there too.
Small world. Small
Wow.
world.
Wow. So yes, I'm in Sheridan and born and raised on this side of the river. So yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I got a little excited when I heard Sheridan.
Yeah, no. It's if my mom's watching, she'll be pumped. So
Wow.
who am I, right? That's your question a little bit. After high school, I went off to the Naval Academy, so
Yeah.
the 9/11 attacks were my senior year of high school, give you a sense of my age, where I was in the world. And that was a big part of why I went off to do that, to try to serve. And I ended up doing a couple tours at sea. I did a tour on the ground in Iraq. And then I became a lawyer, on my way off, leaving active duty, leaving the military, and I've been doing voting rights, election security work. That was my, real jumping into civil rights work, and been working at Pitt the last several years before that at the Brennan Center for Justice, and have been teaching at the law school at Pitt. And I'm most excited about, with my fellow faculty, we fought with the steelworkers by our side, and we won
Hmm.
the biggest union election in the country last year to form a union for Pitt
Yeah.
faculty.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, it was a total team effort, big win for Western PA and for workers.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's a little
Yeah,
bit of
because
who I am.
okay, well, thank you, because I had read that you had started. First and foremost, thank you for your service. But I had read that you had went in young, and I didn't know the story behind your why. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So my next question to you, Chris, is why Congress?
Oof. It's a mess down there, right? That's
Hmm.
part of the reality is people know things aren't working. And look, for
Yeah.
me, I love this country. I love Western Pennsylvania. I love who we are. I'm
Hmm.
running a campaign that's fighting, for our common good. And for me, that means our shared prosperity. We're all in this together. And I look at, this seat, if we're going to try to still have a majority in Washington that can deliver for anyone around here, we got to win
Hmm.
this seat. And, I think that means if we're going to do anything on healthcare, on unions, on civil rights and voting rights, on taxing corporations, you name it, we got to keep that majority. And I know it's people make that point all the time. Well,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's pretty rare when it's actually about a district where it's true, which is what this one
Yeah.
is. And so I look at it like, I'm going to do what I can to try to hold it, to try to be part of being able to deliver for people. And that
Hmm.
means, doing the work here on the campaign and being ready, right? Frankly, if I win, which I hope I will. And we got a lot of hard work ahead of us. I think I'm ready to do the job. I've worked in legislation. I've served in uniform. I've worked in the judiciary. I've organized and fought for a union. So I think I'm ready to do the job if we win.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. And my next question, you touched a little bit on it, voting rights. Now,
Yeah.
Chris, tell us what can be done and how can it be done to where we don't have to hear about it, but we can also be able to see the results of. So that's a two-part question. What do you think that can be done? In how you feel about in the 2022, we are still talking about protecting our vote. So yeah, share a little bit about that with us, Chris, please.
Yeah, that's a great question, Terry. I think, look, the situation is very dire.
Mhm.
In states all over the country, you've got legislatures and governors putting laws into effect that are
Yeah.
suppressing and restricting the vote, making it harder for people to vote. If we didn't have Governor Wolf standing there in the
Yeah.
governor's mansion, we'd have the same thing in Pennsylvania. So that's the situation, and it's happening all over the country, Georgia, Texas, you name it. And so, look, the fact of the matter is the radical right is attacking voting rights. They're attacking our democracy.
Yeah.
It has become abundantly clear they would gladly do that to try to stay in power, frankly, to serve the corporations who back them. And
Yeah.
so protecting elections, protecting democracy, making it so that we really have a democracy that's representative, it
Hmm.
means we got to win elections, but we also have to do the things in the Congress and state houses to protect the vote. And so in Congress, I think that means the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act.
Hmm.
We need that. And people forget we used to pass the voting rights authorization with huge majorities
Yeah.
as recently as the 2006, 2007
Hmm.
or so. So we got to do that. We need federal action on gerrymandering, on campaign finance, and the amount of time candidates have to spend. And let me tell you, it's too much. Spend on fundraising is insane.
Yeah.
And what power corporations have to have a say in politics is it's no one thinks it's right. So we need
Yeah.
action there, and we need and look, I don't want to belabor it, but we need action by the Congress to shore up how we count the electoral college votes. Because what we saw in
Yeah.
2020, I'm sure was a dress rehearsal for 2024, or I fear might be. And we need to do
Hmm.
things to
Hmm.
tighten up so that we don't have vulnerabilities in something as basic as tallying up and confirming what everyone knew who had won the
Yeah.
presidential election.
Yeah.
Joe Biden by millions of votes. So we need
Yeah.
a lot. We got to get a lot done, and it's a big part of not only things I know from my work in this part of our civil rights fight, but
Mhm.
of something I want to work on in the Congress that we really got to do for the sake of people all over this country.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you brought up about the even protecting tallying up the votes because there was people their lives was threatened. They were stuck in their homes with fear of coming out, not knowing would happen to them. And then you also touched on you know Governor Wolf vetoing several things. I'm just going to stick to the one with the voting because he had I'm glad that people is hearing and understanding that, Governor Wolf stopped a lot of things, a crisis coming our way. So I'm so glad that you touched on that, Chris, and thank you for that. Um,
Yeah.
my next question to you is, um, what can be done, on the Congress level to protect the little guy, to protect
Yeah.
small businesses from corporate greed?
Well, I'll tell you, hopes and wishes, right? It's not going to be enough.
Mhm.
You've got corporations that are wielding unbelievable power, right?
Yeah,
They've gobbled up competitors. That didn't just
yeah.
happen by accident. We let that happen,
Mhm,
whether it's in
mhm.
big tech, agriculture, healthcare in our region, right? Think about who the biggest
Yeah,
employers are around our neck
yeah,
of the woods. Those things happen, right? So those things happen. Think about the steel industry around here. That's nearly dead,
yeah.
or that's certainly nothing like what it was in the last century. Bad
Right.
trade deals, right? The corporations that had the mills and the factories here, they went overseas. They went to anti-union, right-to-work states in the South, again
Mhm.
chasing cheaper labor and profit. Right? So those things were choices. And those are policy choices that we shouldn't do as a country, to frankly kill jobs and to let corporations have too much power. And I think it hurts workers. It hurts small businesses that make communities vibrant. It hurts consumers. And so whether it's protecting unions, whether it's antitrust to rein in this power and prevent companies from acquiring it, and taxes. I mean, these huge corporations pay very little in taxes, less than someone who works a normal job. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Chris. Yeah. Yeah. It's the small businesses and the, that in affects the whole community. And, yeah, I'm so glad you tapped in on that as well. My next question, I threw in here because a friend of West End Power, they seen it in one of our, seen the flyer in one of our chat rooms in social media, and the young lady wanted me to ask you your take on climate change. What do you believe in climate change, and if so, what could be done, and if not, why?
Yes, the climate change is happening. And I think the fact that we still have people on the right who refuse to acknowledge that is crazy to me. So yes, it's happening. We don't experience, or we don't in the normal way that they do, the typical way, say in Florida or in the Gulf Coast, experiencing hurricanes, right? So people may not think it's hitting us as directly, but when there were hurricanes a few months back, what did we see around here? We saw flooding and things in places like Oakdale, Coriopolis, right? Flooding that is not normal for our region. That's going to increase. And so part of this, what can we do? What can our government do? A piece of it has to be making our infrastructure, our communities resilient. This is happening to our environment. We're experiencing the effects of it. Put people out of their houses, out of their businesses. We have to invest so that our infrastructure can deal with it. The other part of it, and the reality is, we want a planet that can be habitable for our kids and grandkids. We've got to be making the investments in the types of energy sources of the future. And that's going to go somewhere. And my argument, I hope is an argument I'll get to make as a member of Congress from here, is our region, right, that's been bearing the cost of keeping the lights on. And we've got an energy industry here, ought to be the place to get that investment and those jobs, because they're going to go somewhere. And I think, oftentimes we forget that there's going to be investment, or there needs to be. And there's a jobs component of this. And I really think we ought to be a place that gets it, that gets that kind of investment, because they're going to make batteries and solar panels and all kinds of things somewhere in this country. And I think our region ought to get a big chunk of that investment.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So do I. Now, my next question to you, Chris, is here in Pennsylvania, from studies, from lived experiences, from panels, conversations with the ugly head of racism. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how can you in the Congress position face that ugliness of racism head on?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm going to be clear, that we can look at data, and it exists, right, about different outcomes for people, health, criminal justice, wealth, you name it. I'm a white guy. I can't tell you have felt that in my soul for what that's like. Like, I get that. But you got to be, blind to the reality of the world to not understand what the situation here is, and not just here, I mean, across the country. And so, to your question, though, right, like, what can we do?
Right.
My work in civil rights has been on voting. It is much broader than that, right? And so, yes, we got to do things to protect civil rights for people, but I think there's also a really strong and urgent case that there's an economic justice component that touches on racial justice, that touches on people's lives across class, race, you name it. And you can't have both. You can't have one of those conversations without having both. And so I think, the Congress, especially, the Congress doesn't have a say on so much local policing, although it does, right? The Congress can have a say on how funding is sent to the states and local government. But I think the national government and the things the Congress can do with that taxing and spending power, we've got to confront, the way we're training and dealing with public safety, but we also have to deal with the economic justice side of things. And that's where I think the idea of solidarity, right, of people standing together across racial lines, cross class, right, and confronting corporate power is a big piece of this too, right? You can't have dignity without also economic dignity. And so I think it's both of those pieces, and they both have a strong role to play if we're going to talk about confronting racism in this country.
Yeah, yeah, and what I'm glad that I heard is also that when you said, you as a white man cannot tell my story, but it also tells me that um, you have the not you acknowledge that, and you also is willing to listen and hear, and like you said, stand shoulder to shoulder to fight the ugliness of racism. So thank you for that as well.
Yeah.
My next question to you is, what is it that every community and every community member, every family should want to know about what Congress does?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, the Congress has a lot of power over our lives in a way that I think we kind of forget. I mean, the Congress
Mm-hmm.
can declare war. They've got the power of the purse, right? Spending and taxing.
Wow.
Whether and how you might be able to form a union,
Yeah.
what the bosses can do to try to block that, whether we invest in our infrastructure, how money goes to state and local governments, and
Yeah.
things as diverse. You want to talk about policing, traffic.
Mm-hmm.
The federal government sends a lot of money to the states for a bunch of different things, highways, you name it. Whether we get paid leave when our kids are sick, or our loved ones or other family members. We don't in this country.
Yeah.
The rules around how we vote, our elections, judges who are confirmed, not in the House, but the Senate has a say over that.
Yeah.
Who's staffing the administration, who the president puts in the key jobs. All of those things come through different parts of the Congress. The Senate even, they have a say over treaties and things. And so I guess what I would say is, your city council, county council, your borough council, they have a big impact on your everyday life. The state government in Harrisburg does too, but so does the
Right.
Congress, and especially on some of the really big questions that we kind of think happen a million miles away, but are decided in the halls of power in Washington. And we send, and we will continue to send representatives down, and I think they're a little farther away, but it's a good reminder. And that's why I appreciate the question, Terry, of how much what the Congress does or doesn't do, right? To be frank, doesn't do, impacts our lives. Whether we have health care, all these kinds of decisions are made or not made, frankly, in DC.
Yeah, and when you started off your answer, you had, because I'm guilty of it as well. We forget. We literally forget, the power of Congress, and I'm so glad that you started off with, literally have the power to start a war. So, I'm so glad that I asked that question, because like I said, I was guilty of it as well, just forgetting about, what exactly Congress does. So, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Terry,
Now,
can I add one more thing? Do you mind?
please, yes, absolutely. No,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And what I did say there, and maybe because we have a competent person in Joe Biden in the White House at the moment, but oversight is a big part of what the Congress does. Oversight of the executive branch, investigating wrongdoing in the executive branch, something that was critically important when Donald Trump was president. And so that's a big part of the job in Congress, right? They pass laws, but also conducting and really exercising that oversight power over what our government's doing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's extremely important. Yes, please. Yeah. And Chris, if I don't if you have anything else that you want to add on, please add on and
Okay.
educate us. That's why we're here. We want to learn. And so when again, that when we are having a conversation, we know what we're talking about. We can sit at any table and have a conversation pertaining to what Congress does, who's in Congress. So please educate us, please. Don't hesitate.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and I know that you played. I read that you played a huge role in unions, and you touched the base a little bit about it last year. The huge win that you all, that everyone experienced with Pitt, and so. What role can Congress play? And because we're here in Pittsburgh, specifically, that we're union strong. Like we want, love the union. So how can Congress make the union family even stronger?
Oh, I love this question because we need to make that family stronger, right? I think, you asked earlier about what can you do for the little guy, thinking a little bit about small business. The other side of that coin, when the employers who are increasingly big corporations have so much power, is how hard it is for workers to organize, to form a union, to even when you have
Yeah,
a union, be able to push back. And so, look, the courts and the laws evolved in a way where that playing field's not equal. So the Congress, back to your question, what can we do? We need to strengthen the right to organize, the strengthen the right to collectively bargain. There's a piece of legislation, for instance, called the PRO Act for private sector workers that would do
hmm,
exactly that. That would put stiffer penalties on companies when they mess with, interfere with workers' rights to organize, to form a union, to come together. And so we need, I think, action in the Congress so that we have a level playing field. So we can, as people in this country, as workers, can
yeah,
go join together and without interference, form a union. And I remind people sometimes when I talk about this, the policy of the United States is not to be neutral. The policy of the United States, back to the New Deal, is that we encourage collective bargaining, right? So
hmm,
we're not
hmm,
neutral in this country. We think it's important that workers have an ability to come together and form a union. And it's one that Pittsburgh is a union town, right? We should all be
hmm.
proud of that. But that doesn't mean that we win every fight and that it's easy for people to form a union. It's not. It ought to be easier.
Right, right. Thank you so much. And yeah, Pittsburgh is, we are. Um, my next question to you is, uh, you know, thankfully the 20-year war has ended. Um, so this, I have a couple questions here.
Yeah.
What can be done, number one, to better support our veterans? And what I mean by that is like with homes and health and wealth. And number two is, do you believe the VA need more support from the government, and how?
Yeah. I mean, the most important thing I think we could do for not just veterans, but the people who are serving now is to
Yeah.
never send them again to foolish wars, right? We
Hmm,
shouldn't
hmm.
we shouldn't spend American blood and treasure in places and in wars that aren't worth fighting. Um,
Yeah.
full stop. So what can we do, right? It goes to your second question. The VA needs to be fully funded. It needs to be fully staffed. There are still way too many vacancies from the Trump years that they left unfilled, and the
Yeah.
Biden administration is doing good work to tackle that. But it's a problem, and it goes to the funding too. And it's something like, look, I'm a veteran. I served in Iraq and other places. I'll never break faith with my fellow veterans who our country owes a debt of
Hmm,
gratitude to care for
hmm.
through the VA, to resist privatizing the VA, which people on the right would love to do. The VA is
Hmm.
very effective. As much as there's junk thrown around on the right, the VA delivers good health outcomes at better
Yeah.
value than, and most studies show that relative to the private sector. I'm lucky I get to use the VA. It's
Yeah.
a great resource for people. And so I'll fight to defend it. And I think, your question goes right to it. We've got to just keep it funded and staffed and something that's available, not just for veterans who use it, but it's also a pretty key driver of research on a lot of medical issues. The VA, is one of the largest parts of our government. And so it's
Right.
important to me, something I want to work on if I'm in the Congress, to make sure our VA is doing right by veterans and carrying out its mission, by the way, to support public health in things like a pandemic, which it's done in this pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Because like you said, they play such a vital role, and I don't know. Sometimes I just I feel that, do they know how much love and support that and respect that we have, for our men and women who serve in the VA, so um, thank you for that, Chris. My
Yeah.
next question to you is, why you? Why should someone say, you know what, this is who I look forward to going to the ballot box and saying he's going to be my next congressman? Why you?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think and I feel that I'm, someone who's in my experience in life, what I've decided to do and tried to do in my life, someone who's committed to serving others in service, who's, shown what matters to me and what I fight for, whether it's our voting and civil rights, protecting our elections, doing work to organize and fight for a union, serving the country in uniform. All things I think give you a glimpse into who I am, but I've been very clear that my campaign is not about me, right? I'm a person, I think I'm ready and eligible and qualified to do the job, but it's not about me, right? I'm fighting
Mhm.
in a campaign that's about our common good, right? That we're in this together, our shared prosperity matters to me. I think patriotism, frankly, demands, right, that we fight for that, exactly that, not selfish corporate interest. And so that's what my campaign's about. Yes, I'm the guy on the ballot, but I'm not running a campaign that's, a personality contest about me. I'm running a campaign, I hope, that's about all of us and fighting together for our prosperity.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what, Chris, what I hear and what I have read and what I hear from you is that um, when you just said, I'm not running for me. And I mean, from 9/11, from high school to you sitting here, you have showed and display that you're always for the other person or other people, or helping others, and not just self. So I want to make sure that our listeners, know that and understand that, at the very beginning, when what made you even go into the service. So again, I just wanted to make sure that I brought that out. Before I asked you the next question, I want to see if someone have a question for you. Um, Renee Wilson, I think she made a statement. She says that we should look at Boston and how they protect small businesses. I think that's more of a statement. I'm not sure if that's a question. Do you want to elaborate on that, or are you familiar with what she's saying?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'll give it a look. So Boston was the city, right?
Yes, yes. She said, let me see. She said we should look at Boston and how they protect small businesses. So yeah,
Okay.
please look at what Boston is doing, and maybe we can get back to Renee, because my next question to you is actually, if someone had other questions they wanted to ask you that we did not touch on, or if somebody wanted to volunteer or donate to you, how can someone get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you for that, Terry. In a bunch of ways, the website, which is Chris4PA, CHRISFORPA. You can, I mean, one, read more about the campaign, but also sign up to get in touch with us. You can email us, info at Chris4PA. Our social media is, at Chris4PA, Facebook, Twitter. You can get in touch with us any of those ways. We're really trying to run and build a campaign about people. I don't take corporate PAC money. And that means real humans, all of us, right? We're the
Yeah.
ones who will power this thing. And that will be whether we win or fail, will be whether, we can get this done collectively. So I welcome if folks are interested and want to learn more or get involved with us, please, would love to have you do it.
Thank you, Chris. And so, before we wrap up, thank you so much for, just spending, taking out some time in your day. I know running a campaign, you're busy, 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 but I just want to say thank you so much for coming to our community educational civic series. I look forward to, whichever way the coin flip, you coming back and either sharing with us, you as a congressman, and how you're doing. I look forward to that. And before we go, is there anything that you would like to say?
Well, one, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. It's been, I think it's a pretty powerful thing. You talk about civics, right? People kind of forget how much that's an important part of, not just schooling, but life. So I'm really, humbled and thankful that you gave me a chance to join here and that you're doing this. I know you've gotten lots of really like interesting, powerful, smart folks to come on and chat with you. So I'm proud to be in that group. And just thanks for giving me the chance to do it.
Well, thank you. I don't see if there's any more. Let me check one more time to see if there's any more
Sure.
questions. There isn't any questions, but like you said, you gave how someone can get in touch with you. If do you want to share that one more time, just in case somebody is
Yeah.
just tuning in? How can someone get in touch with you?
Check out the website, chris4pa.com. You can email info@chris4pa or, social media, Twitter, Facebook. It's at chris4pa. Any of those ways, love to hear from folks.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you. I look forward to it. Thank you, everyone who's listening. And Chris, I look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Terry.
Okay, bye bye.